Your father said something to you once, at a kitchen table, about a job that paid almost nothing. You'll spend the next 30 years trying to hear it again. You'll build an entire life designed to make him say it. Better job, bigger house, a number that would make it impossible for him not to. And he will never say it again. Not once. Not because he stops being proud, because of something much stranger and much worse, and it's the reason this whole video exists. So let's climb one more time. Same man, 6 incomes, 0, 30,000, 60, 100, 250, a million a year. But there's a second dial turning alongside the first one, and it's the one nobody wants to look at. Your parents are getting older while you climb. 50 at the bottom, 78 at the top. Same two people in the same house watching the whole thing. And their view of you is changing for reasons that have almost nothing to do with your success, and almost everything to do with the fact that they are, slowly and then quickly, running out of ways to be your parents. Here's what makes this one worth 20 minutes. Everybody thinks the story is that money makes your parents proud of you, and that happens for about one rung. Then something inverts, and past that point, every single dollar you earn makes it harder for your father to say the thing you're earning it to hear. Not less true, harder. There's a mechanical reason for it, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it explains every awkward silence you've ever had in a car with your dad. 6 rungs, 2 parents, 1 sentence you're chasing. Let's start at the bottom. 0, you're 22, they're 50, you're in your childhood bedroom, which is a detail that does a lot of work. There's a poster you didn't choose to leave up, and a bed that's too small, and you're a legal adult with no income sleeping under a ceiling you've stared at since you were 9. Your mother is feeding you constantly. That's the first thing. She is putting food in front of you at a rate that has nothing to do with hunger, and if you asked her why, she'd say you look thin, and she'd believe it. She's not feeding you. She's using the only tool she has left. You're 22. She can't fix your life. She can't get you a job. She can't do the things she's done since you were 4, which is identify a problem and solve it. So she cooks. It's the last remaining instrument. Your father, meanwhile, is explaining your industry to you. He's never worked in it. He's got it about 40% right. He's telling you what they're really looking for, and how it worked in his day, and how you should just walk in and ask for the manager. And you sit there and take it, because arguing would be worse. But here's what's happening, and you won't understand it for 25 years. The advice isn't information. It's a man reaching for the last version of himself that made sense. For 18 years, he was the person who knew things you didn't. That was his job. That was the entire architecture of him. And it's ending. He can feel it ending. It's ending right now at this table, so he's spending it badly on a subject he doesn't understand, because spending it badly is better than admitting it's gone. That's what advice is, at 0. It's not condescension, it's inventory clearance. And the tell is that it's never about the actual problem. He's not solving anything. He couldn't. He doesn't know the field. He's performing the shape of solving, because the shape is what he has. Watch him do it, and you're not watching a man help his son. You're watching a man audition for a role he's already been fired from, in front of the only person who ever cast him in it. And here's the part nobody says out loud. They're relieved you're home. Both of them. They deny it under oath, and it's true. Because for one more year, they get to be necessary. And necessary is the only thing they've been for 2 decades. And they don't know who they are without it. Your failure is giving them their job back. That's the ugly little secret of the bottom rung. Everyone at this table wants you to succeed, and exactly one of you understands what it's going to cost. And you're not the one. You think the cost is time, a year of your life, a delay, an embarrassment. You think you're the one paying. Your mother standing at a stove, putting food in front of a grown man who isn't hungry, is the one doing the actual arithmetic. She knows what the good version of this looks like. It looks like him leaving, and it looks like her having nothing to do at a stove at 6 o'clock for 25 years. 30,000? You're 26. They're 54. You've got a job. It's not much. You've got an apartment with a bad kitchen, and you're proud of it in a way you'll never be proud of anything again, and they come to see it. Your mother inspects the whole thing in about 9 minutes and finds 4 problems and mentions 3. And every one of the 4 is real, and every one of the 3 is delivered as an attack, and none of them are. She's found 4 ways to still be your mother in a home she doesn't live in. The critique is a service. It's the only service left that fits through the door of an apartment that isn't hers. Your father looks at the boiler. And at some point that night, at your table, over food you cooked badly, your father says it. It's not a speech. It's 6 or 7 words. He's looking at the wall, not at you, because men of his generation deliver these things at a 45-degree angle. He says something like, "You did good, getting all this." And you barely register it. You're 26. You're already thinking about the next job, the next number, the thing after this. The sentence lands on a man who's facing the other way. You'll replay it later. You'll be 48 in a car, and it'll surface out of nowhere. The wall, the angle of his head, the exact words. And you'll realize you can't remember what you said back. Probably nothing. Probably you said thanks and asked about the drive home. And that was that. And it was the most important thing that ever happened between you, and it took 4 seconds, and neither of you marked it. Remember that, because that's the last time. Here's why it worked, and why it'll never work again. And this is the mechanism of the entire video. He could say it because he was still above you. Pride requires altitude. It flows downhill. A parent can be proud of a child the way a person is proud of something they made. It's a statement issued from a height. He's 54 with a paid-off house and a career behind him, and you're 26 with a bad boiler, and from where he's standing saying, "You did good," is a natural act. It costs him nothing. It's the easiest sentence in the world. That's the whole engine of the video. So let it sit for a second. Pride is not a feeling that gets expressed. It's a transaction that requires a slope. Take away the slope, and the feeling stays exactly where it was, intact, undiminished, and completely unable to move. Everything from here on is just you, removing the slope, 1 raise at a time, with enormous effort, for 30 years. At $30,000 a year, you are perfectly positioned to receive your father's pride. You are low enough for it to reach you. And you're not listening because you're busy climbing out of the only position where it could ever be delivered. 60,000, you're 30. They're 58. The first tremor, your father calls you about a form, or a water heater, or the car, or something on a computer, and he's not calling to explain it to you. He's calling to ask. And he does this specific thing when he asks. He pre-apologizes. He says he's sure you're busy. He says it's probably nothing. He builds a small structure of excuses around the question before he asks it, so that if you're annoyed, the structure absorbs it. That structure is new. It wasn't there when you were 22. He never pre-apologized for anything in your life. He used to just tell you things. That's the tremor. That's the plates moving. He's begun, very slightly, to treat you as someone whose time has to be requested rather than assumed. And you like it. You'd never admit it, but you do. It feels like arriving. Your father asked you something and you knew the answer, and you told him and he said thanks, and something in you, some 9-year-old, stood up in a stadium. This is the good rung, right here. 60,030 years old is the one place on this ladder where you're both adults at the same time. He's still competent, still driving at night, still fixing things, still fundamentally himself. And you're finally solid enough that he doesn't have to worry. There's a window. It lasts maybe 4 years, where you're two men who happen to be related, talking about a water heater. And the water heater isn't the point, obviously. The water heater is the excuse. He didn't need you to fix it. He could have called somebody, or read the thing himself, or asked the guy next door who's done it twice. He called you because a question is a reason, and men of his generation do not call their sons without a reason. And he's just discovered that being slightly less capable is the price of admission to a conversation with his kid. Nobody's above anybody. Nothing has to be managed. It's the only stretch of your entire adult life where you can just call him for no reason and there's no subtext in it at all. Nobody notices this window while they're in it. Everyone identifies it later, from a great distance, usually in a car, usually after a funeral. 100,000. You're 35. They're 63. This is the year you pass him. Maybe not officially. You might not even know the exact figure. But you both work it out around the same time, from the house or the car or the ease, and neither of you says a word about it ever for the rest of your lives. And here's the moment. It's at a restaurant. The check comes and you reach for it, and he lets you. That's it. That's the whole thing. He lets you. 35 years of him reaching, of that reflex being older than you are, of it not even being a decision. And this time his hand doesn't move. He looks at the table for a second. He says, "Thanks, son." The car ride home is very quiet, and neither of you knows why. He's not upset. Ask him and he'd tell you the truth. He's fine. He's happy. His son bought him dinner, and that's what it's supposed to look like. That's the whole design. That's what a man works for. And he'd mean every word, and he'd still be looking out the window at nothing for 11 minutes. And both of those are the same fact, wearing different clothes. Something ended in that restaurant, and it wasn't about money, and you'd have to be about 60 to have the vocabulary for it. What ended is that he was the man who paid, and now he's not. And there is no third option. There's no version where you split it that isn't its own kind of statement. Now watch what happens to the pride. He is more proud of you than he has ever been. That's genuinely true, and he cannot say it because the sentence has stopped working. Say it out loud and hear the problem. A 63-year-old man with a modest pension telling a 35-year-old who out-earns him that he did good. It doesn't land as pride anymore. It lands as evaluation from below. It's a small man appraising a bigger one, and every instinct he has tells him not to do that, and he's right. It would be excruciating for both of you. Pride requires altitude, and you have taken his altitude. That was the whole project. That's what climbing is. So he goes quiet, and you read the silence as withholding. You think he can't give you the thing. You think he's the kind of man who never says it. He said it at 26. You weren't listening. And now you've built a machine so effective at generating success that it has destroyed the one condition under which the sentence could ever be spoken again. You are, at 35, 100% trapped by your own achievement. And the trap is invisible. And you'll keep climbing for 15 more years, trying to escape it by making it worse. And every rung feels like it might be the one. That's what keeps you going. You think there's a number so undeniable that it forces the sentence out of him. That at some altitude, the pride gets so large it overcomes the awkwardness, and he finally just says it. There isn't. The relationship between the two is inverse, and it never once wobbles. You are pressing an accelerator that's wired to the brakes. 250,000. You're 42. They're 70. They brag about you to strangers now. That's the tell. Your mother tells the woman at the pharmacy what you do. She's got a whole paragraph. She's very fluent in it. She's proud in a way that's completely uncomplicated because she's telling someone below the situation, and pride flows downhill fine when the hill is somebody else. But she can't ask you a real question anymore. She calls and you talk for 11 minutes, and it's all weather and the neighbor and did you eat. There's a whole category of thing that stopped coming up. And then she says it, the sentence that means everything. We don't want to bother you. That's your 7-year-old at the fridge, 43 years later, in reverse. That's your mother deciding on her own without consulting you that her problems are too small to be worth your attention. She's curating herself. She's pre-approving her own requests, and the list gets shorter every year, and it will never grow back. And the 11 minutes on the phone are the receipt for it. That's what's left after the editing. The weather, the neighbor, did you eat? Every real thing has been triaged out by a woman on the other end, deciding in real time that it doesn't clear the bar. You hang up and think you talked to your mother. You talked to what got through. You didn't ask her to do that. You'd be horrified. But she's watched you for 6 years. The flights, the calls you took at dinner, the way you look at your phone, and she's filed it. And now she's editing. The roof needs doing. You find out sideways from a cousin. So you call and you offer, and your father says no. Immediately. Not even a beat. He says they're fine. They've got it handled. Don't be ridiculous. He does not have it handled. And 3 weeks later, your mother calls you when he's out and speaks quietly and says it would be a big help and asks you not to make a thing of it. Now there's a conspiracy in your family about a roof, with your mother as the operative and your father as the target, and you're funding it. That's what 250 does. Your money is now more capable than your father, and everybody knows it. And the only way to preserve the man is to root around him. So you all start lying, gently, forever, out of love. And you're good at it by now. You get very skilled at the roof problem. You learn how to pay for things without them being paid for. The guy who owed you a favor, the deal you happened to hear about, the money that was just sitting there anyway. You become a man who launders his own generosity to protect his father's dignity, and you get so fluent at it that you can do it in a single phone call, and there is nobody on earth you can explain this skill to. $1 million a year. You're 50. They're 78. The inversion is complete. You're the parent now. You handle their money. You handle the house. There's a folder on your desk with their documents in it, and you've had conversations with their doctor, and you know their medication schedule better than your father does. And here's the thing that will stop your heart if you let it. He asks your permission now. Not in those words. He'd die first. But he'll mention that he was thinking of getting something for the garden. And then he'll look at you and wait. There's a pause in it, a tiny one. And in that pause is a 78-year-old man checking with his son. The same man who explained your industry to you at a kitchen table when you were 22. The same man whose advice you sat and absorbed because arguing would have been worse. He's asking if it's all right. And there's no good response. Say yes, and you've confirmed the arrangement. Say, Dad, you don't have to ask me, and you've named the thing out loud, which is worse. Now he knows you noticed, and he has to live with having been seen doing it. So you find the third option, which is to make it a nothing. You say something breezy. You look at your phone while you say it on purpose to prove it wasn't a decision. That's the kindest lie available, and you'll tell it every month for a decade. And you say, of course, Dad, it's your money. And it is his money, technically. And you both know that the word technically is doing an enormous amount of work in that sentence. And then the last thing, the thing that closes the circle, he doesn't tell you when something's wrong. There's a test. There's a result. There's a week of appointments, and he mentions none of it, and you find out afterward when it's resolved and packaged and no longer requires anything from you. He's handling you because he watched you at 42 on your phone at his table, and he's not going to be the thing that interrupts a man that busy. That's not a stranger doing that. That's your father, protecting you from himself at 78 using the exact skill your own kid learned at a fridge when they were 7. So what happened here? You spent 30 years climbing toward a sentence. You did the work. You built the whole thing, the career, the number, the house they can point at. Every rung was, underneath everything, an attempt to make it undeniable. To get so high that he'd have to say it. That's what most men are actually doing up there, whether they'd say it or not. And here's what nobody tells you. It worked backwards. Every single rung made the sentence less possible. Not less deserved, less sayable. Because pride only travels one direction, downhill from a height. And every dollar you earned took a foot of his altitude away. At 26, he was above you, and it cost him nothing to say it. At 35, you were level, and it would have been strange. At 50, you're so far above him that if he said, "I'm proud of you now," it would sound like a man complimenting a building. You didn't fail to get his approval. You made his approval structurally impossible, using approval as the fuel. The machine ran on the very thing it was destroying. And the truly cruel part, the part that should make you call him tonight, is that he did say it. Once. At a bad table, in a bad apartment with a bad boiler, when you were 26 years old and worth nothing, looking at the wall at a 45-degree angle, that was the summit, not the million. That was the highest point you ever reached with him, and it happened at $30,000 a year, and you didn't look up because you were busy planning the climb that would take it away. And you can't go back and hear it properly. That's the part with no fix. There's no amount of attention you can pay retroactively. The sentence was said, once, into a room, to a 26-year-old who was already gone. And the man who said it is 78 now and cannot say it again, and the 26-year-old you'd need to be to receive it doesn't exist anymore either. Both parties to that transaction have left. There's no villain here. That's what makes it unbearable. He wasn't withholding. She wasn't guilt-tripping. Nobody did anything but love each other in the only ways available at each altitude. And none of it was avoidable. Which is the question everybody's going to ask in the comments. You could not have stayed at $30,000 a year to preserve a slope. That's not a life. That's a diorama. The climb was right. The house is good. Your mother has a roof and your father has a garden, and the money did all of that. The cost was real, and the thing it bought was also real, and anyone who tells you those cancel out has never had to choose between them. They just spent 30 years watching their usefulness get slowly bought out from under them by a son who was doing it for them. And they never once complained, because complaining would have been ungrateful. And the house is very nice, and what kind of man resents his son for succeeding? So here's the last thing, and then you can go. Your parents were 22 once, with a father above them waiting for a sentence. And your kid is 4 right now, or 12, or 22, keeping a record you'll never read. And they are going to climb, because you demonstrated the climb every day of their childhood. And one day, they'll be standing where you're standing, holding a number you'd have thought was impossible, waiting for you to say something, and you won't be able to. Not because you're not proud, because they'll have climbed too high to be reached, using a ladder you built, chasing a sentence you already said, at a table they don't remember, about a job that paid almost nothing.